In this video, we are going to learn everything about sending emails using Python. We'll learn how to send plain text email, we'll learn how to send HTML emails, and we'll also learn how to send multiple attachments. So let's get started. We will be using SMTP to send the emails. Before we can send email, we need to know the SMTP server, the SMTP server port, user ID, and password. So if you already have this information available with you, you can skip few seconds. In this video, I'm going to use Gmail. Now for Gmail, we need to have some settings that needs to be enabled. Number one, we need to enable less secured app. So I'll leave the link in the description. So note that this setting is turned off by default. You'll have to specifically go and turn it on here. One more thing to note here is that this setting is applicable only if you do not have two-factor authentication. Ideally, you should have two-factor authentication turned on for better security of your account. So if you have two-factor authentication turned on, then you create app password. So once you're on this screen, what you need to do is select a name for your app. So you can create any name that you want. So let's say mail with Python. This is totally up to you. Click generate, and now you will be presented with this password. Now remember that this password is shown only at the screen just now. Once you close it, it's gone. Now if you want to use Gmail again, you'll have to create a new app password. So just take a note of this password and copy it. So I'm going to copy it here, right? So this is the password, and once you click on done, it's gone. All right. And the username is going to be the same email ID that you are logged in. So I'm just using example@gmail.com. I cannot show it to you on the screen because it is sensitive, right? But still, it's not a good idea to check in this information in the source code. And the SMTP server and port, that is standard. So in case of Gmail, the SMTP is going to be smtp.gmail.com and the port is 587. This information is anyway public. It's same for every Gmail account, but this is a confidential information. So it's not a good idea to leave this confidential information here. So what are few things that you can do? At the simplest level, what you can do is you can create a new file. So let's call it config.py, and let's cut these two information. So these two lines, let's cut it and paste it here. Okay. Because it's in the same directory. So here you can simply say from config import from email and password. So it's simple, right? So this can be done, but still it is not secure. So what you should be doing ideally, you should be creating environment variable. Creating environment variable is going to be based on the operating system that you are using. On Windows, you have the user interface to create environment variables. On Linux and Mac, you can use export command, export email user equals this, whatever is the user ID. So you will have this environment variable created. How do you access this information? So in the config.py, again, I'm going to remove these lines. These are not secure. So instead of that, I'm going to import OS and then os.environ. And then this is just a dictionary. So here I can use whatever I created. So os.environ here, this can be the password. So this is email and this is password from email and password. So this way, what is happening now? You are still using these variables in your file, but the actual username and password is not checked into source code. So after this recording, I'm going to check in this entire folder into GitHub and share the link, but you will not have my username and password. Now for this demonstration, I want to keep this to address private as well. So that also I have put it in the config file, and this also I'm reading from the environment variable. Now let's start with the simplest scenario. So I've cleaned up everything and I'm defining a function and then call this function using if name equals main. Now to send email, what we are going to do is we are going to use smtp lib. So this smtp lib is part of the standard Python installation. So you do not need to download anything extra. So I just need to import smtp lib entirely. And what we are going to do is we are going to use the class smtp. And this is smtp lib.smtp in all caps. Okay. So this is the class that we are going to use. We can use with keyword. So with SMTP lib, and the common convention of this variable name is small letters SMTP, but you can use, of course, anything that you want. Now this constructor needs two parameters. The first is SMTP server name. So this is smtp.gmail.com. And the second is the port. So in case of Gmail, it is 587. If you are using any other provider, then of course you need to look at the documentation. So the first thing that we are going to do is we are going to encrypt the traffic. So for that, we can simply call start TLS method. Now in some places you will see that the method ehlo is called after calling start TLS. So this is optional, but there is no harm. So this is just like saying hello to the server, but this time it's over the encrypted channel. So now we can log in. Now to log in, all we have to do is smtp.login. Okay. And for login, you need username and password. So username here is from email, which remember, we are reading from environment variable. And this is the password. And that's it. We have logged into the server. Now to send mail, we have multiple options. So let's start with the basic option. The basic option is just to call the send mail method. Okay. So send mail, you can see that it expects from address, to address, and message. So the from address I have stored as from email. The to address I have stored as just to, and this is the message. So let's create the message. So this is the message. All right. Here we can print done. Okay. So as soon as we see done on the terminal, we'll go and check the email server. So I'm just going to run code. Now we got the done message printed. So I'm going to make it smaller here. Okay, let's go and check the mailbox. And there we have it. Note that there is no subject. So how do we send the subject? So sending the subject is a little bit tricky here. Now note how I'm changing the message. So let me put some spaces so that you can focus here. So what I'm going to do, I'll start the message with subject and put a colon here. So this is going to be a subject. So this is test mail. All right. And after that, whatever I have to write, I have to put at least one new line character. So it can be one or more than one, but it has to be at least one. And after that, it will be the actual message body. All right. So let's test it. So done. And there we have it. Now this time you can see that this is test mail. This is coming as subject, and this is message. This is coming as message properly. It's coming as a message body. Now here, if we click on show original, so here we can see the actual original message that was sent. So this is the original part, original email that has been sent. All right. So now we know how to send simplest possible emails, and sometimes just this much is enough. So let's talk about those fancy HTML emails. So that's going to be the next stop. So I'm going to create a new file, and this time let's call it rich text or just rich.py. And in fact, let's copy everything from here and bring it here. Now to send the rich email or HTML email, what we are going to do is we are going to, instead of this simple string which contained our subject and the body, we are going to make use of a different class. Okay. So we need to import that class. So this one is going to be from email.message import email message. And again, this is also part of the standard Python library. So you do not have to install anything separately for it. Now this message we can get rid of. And instead of that, what we are going to do is message is going to be the email message. And just to make things more readable, what I'm going to do is I'm going to define some local variables. So subject, so this is subject. And the HTML body, let's create one HTML email. It can be as complex as you want. You can read entire HTML files and put it here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to write this is, and probably just use style elements to color one of them. So now this part is HTML, and now I can use styles, and very simple. I'm just going to put a red color here. So I think this much should be sufficient. So now this is just one line, and this rich text should be in red color. So this is my HTML body, and if I want to have a plain text as well, okay, so plain body, so I'll create one more variable. So now let's work with this email message object. Now all the information that we need we can send in the MSG object. Okay, so let me show you how to send the plain text message, what we have done already. So subject is simply going to be subject, no change, MSG. Now here I am sending the from, so this is going to be from email to, so this is going to be my to address. And if you want, you can have CC and BCC and everything. All these properties can be set here. Now the actual body of the MSG, this is set using msg.setContent method. Okay, and this is where you pass in the content. So let's start with plain body first. So this is just plain text. So that's all we are going to do to send the plain text message. And there are some information which we need to get rid of from this SMTP lib. The send mail. So this function we are going to remove. We don't want send mail. Instead of that, we will use send message and then pass on this message. I'm just putting number 1 so that we can run this code and debug it. So let's go and check. So refresh the inbox and there we have it. And you can see that this is a plain text email. Now, how do we confirm that this is actually plain text and it is not HTML? So we can click on these 3 dots. Click on show original, and here if we focus on this content type, here we can see that this is text/plain. So this is a plain text message. Now this time what we are going to do is we are going to send HTML body. Now if we just send HTML body just like that, I'm going to change the subject, and if we just send it, so let's see what happens. This is subject 2. And now you can see that this is being treated just like plain text. This is still not treated as HTML. So how do we change that? Now to change that, what we have to do is where we are providing this set content, we need to pass one additional parameter. Now this is subtype, and this subtype we need to send as HTML. Every time I'm going to send a new subject so that we can keep a track. Now this will inform that this is going to be an HTML email. So let's see if Google has handled it carefully. See, now we have a red color. So that's what we were looking for, right? So now we have a rich text, and this again can be verified using these 3 dots, show original. And here if we scroll down here, we can see that the content type is now text/HTML. So now we are successfully sending the HTML email. And there is one more thing that you need to note is that it is possible to send HTML and plain text both in the same email. Now to send the plain text along with this as HTML, what you can do is msg.add alternative. Now this is the alternative email that we are sending, and this one is plain body. So the subtype of this alternate is plain text, a simple text, right? So let's change it to subject 4, send it, and let me explain why we are doing it. Some of the email readers will prefer text content. So if there is both the contents which are available in the email, they will show text content first. So let's go to the inbox. Now in this email, we can see that the main email is actually the HTML email. But if we look at original contents and scroll down, we can see that it has 2 parts. So here we can see that the content type is multi-part. There is one HTML part. So this is the HTML one. And then there is a simple text. So this is the one. And it doesn't matter which one you set as the primary and which one you set as alternate. See what I'm doing now? I've set the main content as text and alternate as HTML. Let me change the subject, and even now what will happen is the email client is going to receive HTML and text both. So it will depend on the email client which one the email client wants to show. So if I refresh, you can still see that this is the HTML content which this email client, or in this case Gmail client, is showing here. So it doesn't matter which one you set as the main content and which one you set as alternate. So it is basically just adding more and more alternate. Now let's talk about attachment. So let's create one new file. So I'm just going to make a copy of this rich. So these things are not going to change. So everything is going to remain the same. So there can be two different scenarios. Number one, whenever you are dealing with the text, some kind of text. So it can be plain text, it can be a CSV or something similar. So let me bring one CSV here. So if you just look at this CSV file, this is just a dummy data. So it's a simple scenario. So how do we handle this simple scenario? So what we are going to do is we are going to read this file. So how do you read the file? So we are going to use the open. So with open, and this is data.csv. So we are just going to read it by default, which is the read mode. And now what we are going to do? Now note here what we are going to do. Add attachment. So we are going to call add attachment function. The first argument is going to be the text. So this is simply f.read. So it's going to return all the text inside that data.csv. And now we need to provide the file name. So if we don't provide the file name will not be displayed in the email client. So this can be anything. So here we said data.csv. So just keep it at data.csv, or you can change the file name, doesn't matter. So this is the file name that is actually displayed in the email client. Okay. So let's change the subject. So let's say it's subject 6 and let's run it. And there we have it. You can see that this is subject 6. This is a rich text email and it contains a file which is data.csv. All right, this was easy. But sending something binary is going to be a little bit different. So I'm going to copy some files here. So this one is just an image. So I just got one stock image and I created 2 Excel files as well. So I'm going to copy those Excel files here as well. So if we are sending files which are not text file, then this add attachment, this block will change. What I'm going to do is comment this out. Let's open the file. So the first change is going to be in the opening the file. So let's work with this stock image. Okay. First change, you need to open it in binary mode. Read binary so that we can actually read the bytes. So this is going to be F. Again, we are going to call message.addAttachment. But this time when we say f.read, this is going to give us the bytes. The file name, we still have to provide the file name. So the file name is again stockimage.jpg. There are some additional information which we need to provide, and this information is Mime Type. So Mime Type has a primary type and a subtype. For example, in case of HTML, the Mime type of HTML is text/HTML. So text is the primary type, HTML is the subtype. Now in this case, we note that this is a JPG image. So we can simply say that the main type is image and the subtype is JPG. So this is simple, right? So let's change the subject. So let's run it. So let's go to the Gmail, refresh inbox, and there we have it. So this is subject 7. It's a rich email and we got the stock image.jpg. So this was simple. Now let's talk about one more scenario where you don't know what kind of files you have and you have to attach more than one file. So files can be, let's say, book 1 and this is book 2, and let's send data.csv and the image. So now you can see that we have XLSX files, CSV files, JPG image. So we are going to send all these files as attachment. So the first step is very simple. You can simply run a loop for file in files, msg.attachment, add attachment. Now before we do msg.attachment, we need to open this file. So with open file, and now this time we are going to read in binary all files as F. We are going to call message.addAttachment, f.read. So this is going to be common. The second is file name. So file name is going to be this file. The complexity is about guessing the type, knowing the type of the file that we are processing. Now here we need to provide the main type, which we don't know, subtype. So this is also something we don't know. So we need to read this information about subtype and main type, okay, from this file. So how do we do that? So for that we need to import one more module, and this one is Mime Types. Again, this is part of the standard installation. You do not need to install anything else. So this Mime Types module, this one provides a very useful function. And this function we need to call before we actually send the attachment. And this one is very conveniently called guess type. Okay, so here we can provide this file, and this is going to return two things. So the first is going to be C type. So this will contain the main type and subtype both. And the second thing that it is going to provide is encoding. So you can, if you want to use encoding, you can use encoding, or you can just, use an underscore as a placeholder, because we are not going to use encoding. All right, so now we have the C type. So what we are going to do is we can simply take C type and create two variables, C type dot split. So let's split based on slash. So it's going to return two values. So the first one is going to be the main type, and the second one is going to be subtype, right? And these two things we can pass it here as main type and subtype. So let's change the subject to 7. Everything looks okay. So let's run this code. And I have an error here because this is supposed to be a function call, this f.read. So now I think it should run. All right, so done. And there we have it. So we have this new email which contains all 4 different types of attachment. So that's it. And if you're looking for a practical example, then I'll recommend that you watch this video. So this video will explain a practical scenario where we are sending the final output of a script to the email address. So that's it for now. See you in the next one.